Alright guys, welcome to Learnlyte. In this video, I'll be talking about try and exceptions. So Python uses special objects called exceptions to manage errors that arise during a program's execution. If there's an error in your program, chances are that error can cause the program to crash or halt its execution. That's why it's a good practice to write code that will handle these errors so as to prevent your program from crashing. Errors in your code tend to throw exceptions, and exceptions are handled with try and except blocks. Try and except blocks basically ask Python to do something, but it also tells Python what to do if an exception is raised. So let's take a look at an example at a zero division exception. So let me bring up my Python shell and script here. So what is a zero division exception? Imagine we have a number 5 and we divide it by 0. We know that mathematically this is not possible and we should get an error. If I go ahead and hit enter, see we get a 0 division error. Division by 0. So we know that dividing a number by 0 is a mathematical improbability. We can't do that. We can't divide a number by 0. So that if we were to do that in our program, it would throw an error and more than likely cause the program to crash. So let's take a look at an example of that. So we're going to write a function that basically takes two numbers and divides them and see what would happen if we were to divide a number by 0 and what would happen to our program. So let's get started. Alright, for this program, I'm gonna call this program division. So def division, which takes no arguments. And basically what we're going to do, first we're going to print to the user. We're going to print out to the user saying, give me two numbers to divide. Alright, so give me two numbers to divide, and then I'm going to add a new line character right there. And then I'm going to say to the user print. I'm going to say print. I'm going to say to the user press Q to quit. So anytime the user presses Q, we'll just quit the division. So we're going to say while true. So this is a loop that will run forever. Well, it won't run forever. Basically, whenever the user presses Q, will exit the loop, but generally this would run forever. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to say num1 is going to be equal to, I'm going to get some information from the user. We're going to say input. Let me add a new line right here. We're going to say input. And what do we want to display to the user? I'm going to say, please enter the first number. Alright. I'll make this a capital P. And then I'm going to have a new line character right here. So we get some space. And then I'm going to say if num1, hold on. So I'm going to say if num1 equals to Q, right? What I want to do, I want to break out of the while loop. So the while loop will run forever, but if the num1 equal Q, meaning that if the user enters Q, will break out of the while loop and basically end the program there. So we're gonna break. So if it doesn't equal to Q, what we're gonna do, we're gonna say num2 is gonna be equal to input. And what we're gonna say to the user, we're gonna say, let me just copy this. We're gonna say basically the same thing, except we want the second number. So paste it in here. We say please enter the second number. Alright. And then after that, now I want to say if num2 equals to Q, what I want to do, I want to break out of the while loop. Else, so don't really need that else. We can just say if that's not true, then my answer is going to be equal to the int num1. And we already know why I'm doing this. If you don't know why I'm using the int function, it's basically a typecast, because we know once we get input from the user, it'll be in form string. I'm basically converting it into an integer. So if you don't know what all that means, I suggest you go and watch my previous video on getting user input. That will help you to understand what's going on here. So I'm going to say that int num1 plus int num2. Alright, no, not plus, we're dividing. So that should be divided by num2. And all I'm going to do is print the answer when I'm done. Alright, and that should be it. So let's save and run the program. So basically this program, all it will be doing is dividing numbers. So if I go ahead and I run the program division, doesn't take any arguments, I hit enter. It says give me two numbers to divide, press Q to quit. So the first number, I'm going to give it 10. The second number, 5. And my answer is 2.0, which is right. Please enter the first number again. I'm going to have 7 divided by 3. And I get 2.333, which is also right. First number, I'm going to say 100. Second number, 30. And I get 3.33, which is also right. So as you can see, our program is working quite fine. It's dividing numbers as it ought to. But there's one thing that can happen to our program, basically. An error can arise if we try to divide the first number by 0. So let's see what happens to our program. I have a number 6, and my second number, I'm going to have 0. Now watch what happens to my program now. I hit enter, I get this huge error. It says 0 division error, division by 0. It's telling me what's going on. And as you can see, the program just blew up. It crashed. So you can see how the program crashed the moment we try to divide a number by 0. And in essence, we don't want our program to crash, right? Because let's say we're building a program like this and we put it out on the internet for persons to use. A very skillful hacker could see that our program crashed, and he could take a look at the error message saying answer equal int num1 divided by num2, and we're getting a 0 division error. Someone who's very skillful with computers can use this information to hack our program, right? So we don't want to display these error message to the user, and we basically don't want our program to crash. So this is why try and exceptions are so good in Python. It helps us to catch these errors and basically tell Python what to do if such an error arises. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix this division error by using try and exceptions, or try and catch, right? And we're basically going to say to Python, we want you to divide these two numbers, but if we get a 0 division error, here's what to do. And that way the program can continue running even though there was an error. So let's take a look at how we're going to accomplish that. Alright, so let's take a look at the program. I'm going to close this. So you can see the error arises when we try to divide a number by 0. So let's rewrite this program using try and catch to basically fix it. So hold on. Put that there. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this entire program. And down here, I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to call it division 2. So let's add the try and exception so that we can catch the 0 division error. So right here, we know that this is the part of the code that basically gives us the error when we try to divide a number by 0. So what we're going to do, we're going to say try and execute this block of the code. So try and execute this block of the code. And then now we're going to say except, right, when we have a 0 division error, right? So that's the error we got. And then when we have a zero division error, what we want the program to do, we just want the program to print to the user, you can't divide by 0. Alright, and then if there is no zero division error, what we want to do, we want to say else, just go ahead and print the answer. So let me explain what's happening, or how the try and except works. So we're going to say, while we use the try statement, we basically say to Python, try this block of code. So anything that comes after the try, the keyword try with the semicolon indented, we're telling Python to basically try and execute this block of code right here. So when Python tries to execute that block of code, we're going to say this line right here tells Python that if while trying to execute that block of code you get a zero division error, we want you to print out you can't divide by 0. Else, if you executed this block of code or this code and didn't get a zero division error, just go ahead and print the answer. And that's what this else is doing. So let's recap. The try is basically telling Python to try this block of code right here, try and execute it. And if you go ahead and try and execute it and you get a zero division error, right? That's what this except is saying. Then go ahead and print you can't divide by 0. But if you try and execute this block of code up here and you don't get a zero division error, just go ahead and print the answer. And that's what the try except is doing. So let's take a look if that had fixed our problem before. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, hit save, and let's try it out. So let's say division 2, so that's the new name of the function. Hit enter. So we say enter the first number, 5, enter my second number, 5, and we get 1. So enter the first number, 7, let's enter the second number, which is going to be a 0 now. We hit enter. It says you can't divide by 0, and it says please enter the first number. So you can see our program did not crash like how it did before. So before, when we tried to divide by 0 and we didn't have a try and except, our program basically crashed. But because we now have the try and except, we're basically able to catch that zero division error, and we can say to Python, try and execute this block of code, and if a zero division error arises, do this. If a zero division error doesn't arise, then do something else. And that's what this try and except block right here is doing. So you can see that basically fixed our program, and now we're not showcasing to the user any errors which they could exploit and basically hack our computer with. So now we can basically display to the user helpful messages saying that you can't divide by 0, so the user knows what exactly is going on. And as you can see, our program is still running quite fine. It hasn't crashed or anything. So let's take a look at another example. So what happens, so we know we fixed it when the user tries to divide a number by 0. But what happens if the user tries to divide a number by a character that is not basically working? So we know right now if we were to press Q right now, and we hit enter, it breaks out of the code, breaks out of the while loop, and basically ends the program. That's what we want. But what if the user were to do something like this, where, let's run the function again, we enter the first number, 4, enter the second number, W. What if they did that? What would happen then? We go ahead and we hit enter, and you can see we have a new error. We have a value error because we're trying to divide a number by a character which is not a number, and the user could simply do that. As you can see, I entered W and the entire program crashed. So let's write another try and except to basically catch that, right? So that the user, so that we can basically make our program more bulletproof, as I would say. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to start by copying all of this. So copy, Alright, so copy this, and down here I'm gonna paste that. I'm gonna call this division 3. Let me go ahead and close this, run this again just to have it open back up. Alright, so let's basically write a try and except block so that we can catch the value error. So we're gonna say, again, we're gonna try this block of code, and what we're saying, except a zero division error, we're going to print you can't divide by 0. But what we're gonna do now, we're gonna write another except block. So we're gonna say except value error. So now when we have a value error, what do we want to do? We want to basically print to the user. Oh, what do we want to say to the user? I'm gonna say, whoops, something doesn't look right. Alright, and that's basically what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna say try this block of code, right? And we're gonna say if there is a zero division error, which is what we have right here, I just want you to print you can't divide by 0. And what this is saying, if there is a value error, hold on, we're gonna say if there is a value error, that's what this is saying, we're gonna print whoops, something doesn't look right. Okay, so you can see right here in this code now we're handling multiple exceptions. We're handling a zero division exception, and we're handling a value error exception. So let's go ahead, save, and run it now. And let's see if that fixed our problem. So we call division 3, no arguments. So the first number, I'm going to say 6. Second number 3. We get the correct answer. I'm going to say 89 is my first number. Divide by 9. That is also correct. So let's say we have 10. Divide by 0. We have u can't divide by 0. The program doesn't crash. So let's say we have 65 divided by t. And what do we get? We get whoops, something doesn't look right. Please enter the first number. And as you can see, we basically catch the value error. So even if the user tries something like 5 divided by, I don't know, a plus, a equal sign, we catch it. Or we have a, for example, something dumb, a question sign being divided by 3, we catch that error. Whoops, something doesn't look right, and our program doesn't crash. So you can see how try and except basically allows us to write code that can handle these various errors so that our program doesn't crash, right? And it allows our program to continue executing despite these errors arising. So let's take a quick recap. So we wrote a function, division, that basically divides two numbers, but we realized that if we let a number equal to 0, or we let num2 equal to 0, we're going to divide num1 by 0, which is a mathematical fallacy. We know we can't do that, and that basically caused our program to crash. So what we did in the next example is we wrote a try and except statement to handle that zero division error which was raised. And we basically say to Python, say, try to divide num1 by num2, right? And if while doing that division you get a zero division error, just print to the user you can't divide by 0, right? And the program basically doesn't crash. So that's what's happening. And we say, if while trying to divide num1 and num2, and you don't get a zero division error, just go ahead and print the answer. That's what this else is doing right here. So you can see in this example, we basically handled the zero division error, which basically prevented our program from crashing. But we also found that there was another error. What happens if they try to divide a number by a character or symbol which isn't a number? That's going to produce a value error. So not only do we have to handle the zero division error, we now have to handle a value error. And I showed you how to handle multiple exceptions or multiple errors using the try and except. So down here in the third example, we try to divide the num1 by num2. If we get a zero division error, we print you can't divide by 0. And we also wrote code that if we get a value error, we're going to print to the user, whoops, something doesn't look right. So you can customize your program to basically do whatever you want whenever a exception occurs. So for example, in this case, if we get a value error, we're just printing out some useful messages to the user. You can do something else if you want. So if you get a value error, you can choose to print something to the user to give the user a hint as what went wrong, or you can choose not to do anything. You could simply just, for example, let me just turn this into a comment. You could simply allow the program to fail silently. I just pass. So what this is telling Python is if you get a value error, just don't do anything and continue the program. You can do that if you want, but it's generally a good idea that if something does go wrong, you want to let the user know what went wrong so that the user doesn't consistently make the same mistake. Alright, and that's it for this video. If you've liked the content, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And as always, please subscribe for more content. Hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever a new video is posted. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.